Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Homer and the Hater Show. I am Jeff Hartman, the Homer, and the editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And joining me as always is Lance Williams, the Hater. What's up, Lance? How's it going?
What's up, Homer?
I have a feeling, we've been talking a lot off the air via text, and before we went on the air today, the topic that we're going to have, the main gist of the conversation, the first part of the show, we might have our roles switched here a little bit. Lance might be the Homer today. I might be the Hater. And it's all surrounding one player on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Now, if you listen to us, I think it was Wednesday. Wasn't it the Standard that was dedicated basically to Ben Roethlisberger?
Yes.
So this episode is going to be dedicated to one Terrell Edmonds. Yes, the guy that was in the bathroom when the Steelers took him in the first round a few years ago. Had to pull up his drawers real quick and run out there on stage. Anyways, that's actually a true story, by the way. I don't know if people knew that or not.
I did not know that. Before I comment on that, which is pretty funny. I want to wish my wife, my beautiful wife, a birthday. Her birthday is tomorrow. And it's just one of those special milestone birthdays as well. So I want to wish her a happy upcoming birthday on April 6th. We celebrated a little bit yesterday. We celebrated with a massive Zoom party because that's kind of just where it is right now. But it was pretty good. It worked out pretty well. There were some advantages to it. There were probably about 45 people on the Zoom call. So she was able to interact with some people that she may not have been able to had she just done a traditional birthday party. So again, I want to dedicate this show to her, and happy birthday to my wife on her. I think it's the golden birthday. I don't know. I don't know the medals. I think wood is 5. I do know. Yeah, but happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday to Mrs. Williams. We wish you nothing but the best. And hey, it's like you said. And I was talking to my children this morning on our walk about how no matter what situation, there can always be something positive to glean from it. She got to have a Zoom party, and maybe she did get to talk to some people. But I like this is up, and today Dave Schofield chimes in the live chat. Today's Big Bro Sco's birthday, so happy birthday to Big Bro Sco today.
Big Bro Sco from Little Bro Sco.
Co-host of the Stat Geek and the Stat Geek Q&A. I love what Ezra says just about the show in general. He said, "Thank God for this show. It's the only time my lady leaves me alone." Well, hey, we all get it. We all get it. So with that all said, and we got a lot of people chiming in the live chat. Let's do a little roll call, Lance, before we get started with this Terrell Edmonds talk. Roll call, everyone. Where are you watching? Chime in the live chat if you're watching us live on YouTube. If you didn't know we had a YouTube channel, just go to YouTube, search BTSC Steelers Radio. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos. We appreciate it. We'll see where we have some people. I know Melvin's in the house. He's an old Blog Talk Radio
Melvin,
guy.
Man, it is raining cats and 3 dogs out here. Like, it is raining really bad in California. So there will be no grill work, my brother.
Very good. So we'll see where some people are chiming in from. We got Midtown Atlanta, Spokane, Washington, Southern Cali, Zachariah, Daredevil from San Pedro, California, Way Johnson from Pasadena. A lot of people out on the West Coast, Lance, man. And Melvin, there it is, Dallas, Texas, Blog Talk Radio veteran. What was it, you or was it Brian that was on the show when the Steelers played the Cowboys and he called in just absolutely hammered after the game? Was that you or was that Brian?
Me?
Were you on the show with me when Melvin called in after the Steelers beat the Cowboys?
I don't think so. I would have remembered that. That'd have been epic.
Oh my gosh. He was trying to get into a taxi and was on the phone with us. And just...
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
There you go. Let's see here. We got some more. Jim Jensen from North Dakota, Braden Miller from Erie, PA, Joel from New South Wales. That's crazy. Pitman from Atlanta, Devious from Nashville, Robert from Washington. We've got some Ryan O'Toole from Mechanicsburg, PA. That's not far from where I am right now. Gyro still in Northeast Ohio. Sorry to hear that. I had someone email me there. They said, "What's your beef with Northeast Ohio?" I just feel bad for those people. You're living in Browns country. Hey, at least you chose the right team. That's what I would say. But
Bad said it was him, and I figures it was bad. Bad brings the bad out of people, so it figures that
no,
it
that
was bad
that
on the
was
call.
that was an all-time great call though. And Melvin corrected me. He said it was after we beat the Bengals when Ben got hurt. That was an all-time. It was hysterical. It was live radio, live call-in. It was great. All
We
right,
would love
let's
to
get.
be able to do that again, but
I need to research that. I need to
we had
research
the
because.
infamous caller that
Oh yeah,
yeah
that was bad. I forgot
yeah
all about him.
yeah wow that yeah. If you were listening to the shows back in the day, you know what we're talking about from the infamous caller. I don't want to give
Yes,
that person any light in case they're in the live chat and they want to do it via the text or the written word, but it
there
was
you go.
pretty bad. It was really bad.
And Melvin says, please research calling in. I miss talking to you guys. I'll try to find a way. I might have to reach out to our fine folks at StreamYard with the streaming service that we use and see what they can do for us. But
Bad always brings up something funny. Today is Kid from Kid and Play's birthday. I can imagine
oh man,
Brian Anthony Davis doing the Kid and Play kick step. Him and Dave Schofield doing the Kid and Play kick step. If you know what that is, just imagine Bad with BJ Finney's pants
yes,
on doing the Kid and Play kick step with little bro Sco in the Kylo Ren mask on. That
nice.
we have to film that. That has to be about as
Oh,
bad as
that
who was terrible with the field goal attempt? Was that you? Did you attempt the field goal
no, that
with
was Dave.
Dave?
That was Dave. All right, let's get this show on the road because a lot of people might have seen the headline and said, "Yeah, I want to hear what they have to say about Terrell Edmonds." Because someone earlier, right at the beginning of the show, what did they say? Our worst defender, referring to Terrell Edmonds. Would you say that Terrell Edmonds right now is the Steelers' worst defender?
Yes. However, I'm going to David. I'm going to give you a Dave Schofield, the Oracle Lil Bro Sco type answer. And I think the way he answered, because he answered a question on his show yesterday, kind of like this about Bud Dupree. But he answered, so he basically said that Bud Dupree was the worst defender of the front seven. But he gave really good context to it because when you look at the front seven and you look at Hayward, you look at Watt, you look at Bush, you look at the time, Javon Hargrave, you look at the very good quality players in the front seven, it made sense that Bud Dupree was the worst of the front seven. It doesn't mean he's bad. It just means the front seven was so very talented. He just happened to be the worst of the front seven. But that still meant he was very good. So I think that's the same thing when you look at Terrell Edmonds. You look at this entire defense, you look at the talented front seven, you look at Hayden, you look at Nelson, you look at Minkah Fitzpatrick. When you start looking at the 10 defenders, yes, he is probably the worst defender of the defense, along with who was the free agent or the guy the Steelers traded for? Chris Wormley. Is it Wormley is the last name?
But he's not going to be a starter. He's going to be a rotational guy.
Well, let's say whoever, just plug in unsaid nose tackle. That person will probably be the worst person. So Edmonds will probably be 10th of 11
in their base. Okay,
in their
I
base
got you.
defense. But that just means that's how talented that they are on defense, that a first round guy could potentially be their worst guy. But that might mean something else as Jeff dons the hater cap.
Yeah, I mean, you were texting me and we didn't know what the headline or the main topic was going to be, but before we got started on the show today, let me bring up these questions you asked me. Or do you have them by chance?
You
don't
bring
of
those up.
course
Yeah,
not.
go ahead
I've
and bring
got
those
it.
up.
I've got it. Here we go. So you were asking me all these questions about Terrell Edmonds, and I was like, okay, we can talk about Edmonds. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Terrell Edmonds fan. I wasn't a big fan of the selection at that time. I didn't think that they needed to pick him in the first round. I felt that he could have been there in the second. Some even suggested even the third he could have been there. And when I hear that, that really ticks me off because, my gosh, they'd spent a first round draft pick on him. Anyways, you asked the question, what does Edmonds' ceiling look like? I gave you a response. I want to know what your answer is.
So why don't you let people know what your response was?
I said it looks like a tin roof. To
I
go
don't
with the
know what.
B-52s, tin roof, rusted.
See, now I'm not very familiar with the B-52s. I think I know
That's
that. What
Love
was their
Shack.
famous
Everyone
hit?
knows Love
What was-
Shack. That was
Yeah,
Love
Love
Shack. That's
Shack.
from
That's
Love
right.
Shack. Yeah.
I don't know any Love Shack lyrics except for hacking the chorus and the words Love Shack. But I mean, that's a great karaoke song.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a tin roof. I don't know what roofs are made of. I'm sure we have someone in the live chat that could probably build a roof. So let's
Yeah.
just say whatever the best roof is made out of, one that has maybe a 50-year warranty and never leaks. He's not that roof. He's
No.
probably your roof that has a 20-year warranty and may have to be patched a couple of times. But what I do think about Edmonds is I think Edmonds is a glue guy. He's a very good sub package guy if he plays that dime backer role like the Steelers did with Morgan Burnett. I think if they put him in that role, his value to that defense can be maximized. Because I think at this point in time, I think with defense, the more versatile secondary guys you have, the better defense you have. So if you can bump him as into that dime backer role, you can put a guy in the secondary that may be better from as a coverage player and a player that has more awareness. And it just gives you more versatility in sub packages, and it gives you more speed and more coverage players on the field. Because right now, I mean, you have to be really good against the pass. You got to be much more better against the pass than you do the run. So I think if they put him in that situational package as that dime backer, I think you start to maximize his value. But just as a strong safety, I don't think he has a ton of impact on the defense.
Well, let me ask. Okay, so Sean Manahan said it, and he used one of your sayings. He said Edmonds is a guy, but he'll never be the guy. And I agree with that
Yes, I agree.
100%.
I agree.
But you brought up the dime backer role, and I agree that we've talked about this on our shows before. That is where he best fits. So I'm looking at this saying, okay, if he's going to be that dime backer and we don't think that he's the best in the deep half, then is he a part-time player? Or is he someone that you're still going to put back there? Because I cannot get the play out of my head in Arizona. We all know the play.
Yeah.
It was an easy interception. And he misjudges the ball, and it's a touchdown. It might not have been a touchdown, but he doesn't even get his hands on the football, and it's a completed pass. I think it was a touchdown.
Yeah, it was a
Anyways,
touchdown.
I can't get that out of my mind, and just that's horrible for a deep secondary player.
But how about this though? Let me play the advocate here on his behalf. If I were his defense attorney, he was in position to make the play. Now, he didn't make the play, but he was there. So he was in the right position. He was in the right area of the field to put himself in position to make the play. It wasn't as if it was an awareness mistake. That was a ball skill mistake. And I think ball skill mistakes can be corrected as opposed to, or they're easier to correct than awareness issues. My issue with him is sometimes he doesn't display a great feel for the game. Whereas Minkah Fitzpatrick is a great ball skill player and has a great feel for where the ball is going to be. And his awareness is probably at a 9 or a 10, right? I would put Edmonds' awareness closer to a 5 or a 6 with ball skills around. I'd say Edmonds' ball skill. I would say his awareness is about a 7 and ball skills are about a 7. There is definitely
Whoa,
room
wait a
for
second. Wait a
improvement.
second. Hold on. You said ball skills at what?
At
7?
about a 7. He's just not.
How many interceptions does he have in his career?
What, 3? Just 1?
1.
Yeah, that's an
And how
awareness
many
issue.
pass defenses does he have? You said this on Wednesday. How many pass defenses does he have in 2 years as a safety?
Let me guess. 8?
7.
7. Okay. Well, that's not
And you
great
said
for
his ball
either.
skills are a 7?
Well, let me just now that
2. I'll give him a 2 out of 10
now
in
that the
terms of ball skills.
prosecution has displayed some very compelling evidence, I may need to take a continuance and look for some more facts to defend Edmonds in this case because the evidence is not looking favorable. Judge, could I
I
have a continuance?
Yeah, seriously, Your Honor. I guess I look at Terrell Edmonds and I say, okay, we've talked about how dynamic Minkah Fitzpatrick is. Everyone's drawn the comparisons to the best safety, the best playmaker the Steelers defense has had since Troy Polamalu played. We're not saying he is Troy. We're not saying he's going to be Troy. We talked last episode about how there's never going to be another Troy because Troy just played the game a different way. But for every Troy Polamalu, there's a Ryan Clark that's like the anchor.
Yes.
Is Edmonds capable of being that anchor for Minkah Fitzpatrick to do his thing? What do you think?
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because
that's a problem, by the way. That's a big problem.
If they make Minkah into this Joker hybrid type player that where they move around, he starts doing different things. I think to be the anchor to Minkah, you have to have excellent awareness because you have to have awareness as to where Minkah should have been or could have been. And you have to know your spot and you have to have kind of a feel for where you think an offense is going to attack if Minkah does something off script. So that's, I think, the beauty of Ryan Clark. And I'm trying to remember the safety before Ryan Clark that played
Chris
with
Hope.
And Chris Hope. Very aware, that great awareness. And they have to have a great feel. When you play with a player that maybe has the freedom to improvise, you have to be extremely knowledgeable and have great vision and a great feel for the game. But let me tease this, Jeff. Is there a scenario where you see him being transitioned into a inside backer full time? They draft a safety and possibly move a safety and play another deep safety as a free safety. And they kind of play two free safeties and a little bit different than your traditional free safety and strong safety. I know those get blended, but Edmonds is more of a strong safety. I think we could agree of. But where you go with kind of two free safeties and you bring Edmonds in the box to play that week, that inside linebacker with Bush, or would they be too light if they did that?
I am on board with that 100% because you asked me in our text before we went on the air, who is a player comparison for Edmonds? And what was my answer? Edmonds is another Mark Barron. And I don't think they're, in terms of size, that different because Edmonds is a bigger bodied safety. Put him out there as that hybrid safety, and I'm actually excited about what he can do for the team. That's just me. But I'm excited about what he could bring to the Steelers defense in sub packages. And I think that, you can draft a safety, and they've already been rumored to be looking at a couple safeties, one from Clemson who would be like a day 3 pick. But for me, you might already have your answer there. And I think it might be Cam Sutton. If you're going to put Edmonds down low, tell me why Sutton can't play the deep half alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick. Or would you switch Hilton? But Hilton plays the line of scrimmage better than Sutton. So I would want Hilton to stay where he is. Do you agree or disagree?
Yes, I'd want Hilton to stay in that role. You need another coverage guy. So let's tease this out. Let's tease this out. If you move Edmonds into the box and he's a linebacker, give me your 6 DBs.
Well, obviously you have Nelson, you have Hayden, you have Fitzpatrick. I guess, like I said, if you have Hilton's on the field.
Right. That's 4.
So that's 4.
Sutton is your 5th.
Sutton is your 5th. I guess my question is, are you taking another linebacker off to do this? I'm going to take Vince off. So you're taking Vince off and you're putting him down in the box. That's a problem. Is it a guy like Justin Lane? I'm not sure. Maybe if they want to keep if they want to stay heavy, they could always look at keeping Vince on and just keeping you're just basically like that dollar defense they talked about before. You would then sub off a defensive lineman. So they have options.
Yeah, they have
options in my opinion. Well, what would you do?
Let me just give you the differences in weight. I just looked up both guys, Barron and Edmonds. They got Barron listed at 230 and Edmonds listed at 217. 217 is kind of light in there. I'm trying to think when they put, I'm trying to think back in my head when the Steelers had Morgan Burnett. I'm trying to think back to that New Orleans Saints game when they played Morgan Burnett as the dime backer. I think they did take off a defensive lineman and they kept LJ Fort, excuse me. I was trying to say AJ Foyt, LJ Fort on the field. That's interesting because I think your advantage with Sutton is, I think when you look at Sutton and Hilton, Sutton is the better coverage player. However, you lose that element of Hilton at the line of scrimmage. I think you could put Hilton, because I know they did it a little bit last year where they put Hilton as a deep safety. I think you could just do it that way. You put Hilton as a deep safety, you keep Cam Sutton as the coverage guy, and you might just blitz other people and not blitz Hilton off the line of scrimmage. You might do it that way and let Hilton be that guy next to Minkah Fitzpatrick and play that deep half. And you'd probably be in quarters, I would think. Maybe cover 3, but you'd probably be in quarters to a certain extent, or maybe cover 6, some quarters, and some cover 2, different coverages on both sides of the hashes. But I think the thing about maximizing Edmonds' impact on the defense, I think what we're saying is, to maximize his impact, it's up to the coaches. If you keep him in that traditional strong safety role, because of his issues with awareness and ball skills, he's not going to impact the game. He's going to be really just a supporting element. He's going to be like good milk in a recipe for some cookies or some cake, right? You don't really taste the milk, but if the milk is sour, you definitely taste it. But if the milk is good, you don't. It just adds richness to the recipe. I think the frustration with Steeler fans is they want to see some icing on the cake, some good red velvet icing. Like they want to see some zing and some pizzazz, because that's kind of what you want with the first round draft pick. But I think the most valuable thing with Edmonds right now is his durability. He plays snap in, snap out. And I think with his athleticism, you can get different things out of him based on whatever the creativity of the coaches. So he's athletic and strong enough to be used in a variety of ways. He's not limited like a Ryan Switzer who can't do anything. He's just a physically talented and gifted guy. And so if the coaches can figure it out, he has the athletic ability to possibly do it.
Yeah. Edmonds is, to me, would be perfect for that hybrid role and playing down the line of scrimmage. I just, I was watching, it's going to publish on the website behindthesteelcurtain.com tomorrow. Minkah Fitzpatrick joined ESPN's First Take with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. I guess it was early last week. I didn't see it live.
Every time I see Stephen A., I just don't listen. But I did see Minkah, and I was just like, I can't listen.
Well, so Minkah was asked a bunch of questions, and they asked him about individually, what are some of your goals for 2020? And he said, I already got the All-Pro, first team All-Pro. I did Pro Bowl. He said, my next goal for myself is Defensive Player of the Year. He said that I had a pretty good run at it last season, but then all of a sudden, he said, they stopped throwing at me. And because they stopped throwing at me, my statistics went down. He wasn't able to get past defenses and interceptions. That's something we've talked about, and not just us, a lot of shows, almost ad nauseum, that at a certain point, offenses said, we're not going to throw to Fitzpatrick's side. The issue I have, and this brings it back to Terrell Edmonds, is that if he's playing the deep half, they will know where to go with the football.
Yes.
Period. You can't have a weak link like that back in the back end, because then you're nullifying all the dynamic aspects of Minkah Fitzpatrick's game, in my opinion. And so they, like you said, the coaches are going to have to be creative. I do think Edmonds has a skill set that can be beneficial to the team. I really do. At the same time, I don't know if he's the player that some people are expecting him to be or can be in 2020. That's just my own opinion, though.
Let me ask you this, and I think with us fans and most people, is that when you get drafted in the first round, it could be a gift or a curse. The gift is obviously you get paid great money. Teams are going to give you a legitimate shake, for the most part, to fail, to succeed or fail. The other thing is that because you were drafted in the first round, the league is probably going to give you a legitimate chance to fail over and over and over again, because somebody saw first round talent in you. And with the Steelers doing it, it'll give Terrell Edmonds additional years that he may not get being a fourth rounder. Unfortunately, when you get drafted in the first round, there's an expectation that goes with it, especially if you're a Pittsburgh Steeler first round draft pick and drafted on the defensive side of the football. Is it acceptable for you, Jeff, if a first round draft pick merely is a complimentary player? I mean, does a first round draft pick have to be this lights out, all pro, multiple Pro Bowl guy, borderline Hall of Fame? I mean, just do first round draft picks have to be great players, or can they be Lawrence Timmons, where they're just solid? They play a vital role in your defense year in, year out. And when you don't have them, then you go, wow, he's not playing, and we see the difference.
Yes, a first round pick does have to have those same. They don't have to be a Hall of Famer, okay? Because we know that's this rarefied air. But a first round draft pick does have to play. They have to play well, and they have to play a lot. And I just described Lawrence Timmons, the Steelers' first pick in 2007. I guess the question, and Edmonds, the book is still being written on him. Just like we always say, you can't grade a draft class the day after they were picked. You just can't do that. And so he's going into year 3. In my opinion, this is a pivotal year for him in a wide variety of ways. The Steelers are going to have to make a decision on his 5th-year option at some point, and they're going to have to know, okay, is this guy worth it or is he not? And so does Edmonds, is he always there? Yes. You brought up durability. He's very, very durable so far in his career. That's a good thing. Has he shown some promise? I would go ahead and say yes, that he has shown some promise. At the same time, I do caution and have a little bit of trepidation, we'll put it that way, when it comes to what he's going to become and what could he become. Because someone in the live chat, I forget, it's obviously continues to go as they keep talking, and that's great, is move Minka around more. You can't do that if you have a liability on the other side. Like, you just can't. And so if Terrell Edmonds has strict limitations on himself, that he is not able to do what the Steelers hoped he would as a first-round pick, and therefore that hinders Minkah Fitzpatrick, that is a death knell for your secondary, in my opinion. We're all entitled to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting what they do, because, you know, he's a tough evaluation. He doesn't necessarily kill you, but he doesn't necessarily do enough to get you excited. He's the 7. I mean, he's the 7. I mean, he's the 7.5, for male or female. Like, he's fairly attractive. He's a solid guy. Doesn't necessarily get you excited like the 9 or 10 that is really bad for you, but is really hot. Like, like you never know. Like, you just as I hopefully didn't give an inappropriate
we got you.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear, though, because Ezra in a live chat says Edmonds should not play safety. I'm not suggesting that he turns into a linebacker. I'm just saying that they have a position now on their defense, and it's been well documented from Morgan Burnett to Mark Barron, that he could play that position. Can he then improve his skills and his ball skills enough in the back end that he would never have to leave the field? That's the question entering 2020, and we'll see.
Well, let me ask you one more question, Jeff. As we go into the hypothetical bag, do you think he could bulk up, maybe get to about 225, anywhere between 225, 230, and be a full-time inside linebacker? So they don't have
full-time inside linebacker?
A full-time inside backer.
What's Vince Williams' height and weight? Look that up real quick.
I'm gonna guess Vince is probably around 240.
Yeah. He's also probably a little bit taller too.
A little thicker. I would guess probably around there. I'm thinking, Bush is probably about 230, 235. They got Vince actually listed here at 233, 6'1", 233. Right.
So Edmonds is a big-bodied safety. So could he potentially bulk up and, yes, play down in the box full-time? It's a possibility. I just don't know. I need to see exactly what he looks like even in that hybrid role, because we've never seen him there. He didn't play there last year. If he did, it was temporary. And so we'll see. And
Yeah,
the book is still out.
yeah, and there's awareness issues when you're playing linebackers with run fits. You kind of got to feel where it's going. And so awareness is, you got to have a certain awareness at the linebacker position. But I don't think they probably drafted him as a safety to be a linebacker. I think that would be evidence of a bad evaluation of the player, and that they're trying to just get the most out of the player because he was a first round draft pick before he eventually goes to another team.
So, yeah. And so to kind of sum things up on Edmonds, we'll see. And I think he's a player that is definitely worthy of the discussion, because he's not the linchpin, but he's a very important piece of the puzzle for the Steelers defense moving forward. So right now I'm looking at my screen. We have 104 people in the live chat right now watching live. What we ask that you do is to like the show. Okay, so if all these people are watching, if you're watching on your cell phone, just X out of the live chat, hit the thumbs up, go right back to the live chat. You haven't missed a thing. We appreciate everyone for doing that. And Ryan O'Toole's right. Terrell Edmonds could bulk up if I was training him. Absolutely. Put him on the JH21 program. There you go. We'll get involved.
And by the way, who your client is going to have to come on the show.
He's not a client yet. He has voiced some interest. We'll put it that way.
Yes. When he becomes a client, we have to see the before and after. I definitely want to see that transformation.
We will. If he signs up and he gets on board, well, we will. It's tough times for a lot of people. Finances are definitely tight for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. But with that said, what I did before we went on the air, this was earlier in the morning, I went to our Behind the Steel Curtain Twitter account. That's BT Steel Curtain. You can check us out there. If you don't follow us, just give us a follow. And I said, just looking for some Steelers questions for the Homer and Hater podcast today, fire away. We had a pretty good response. So we're going to go through some of these questions. If you're watching live in the live chat, go ahead and give us your answers as well. And so we'll start off the bat. I'm going top to bottom. Frankie J. Ryan says, should the Steelers sign Clay Matthews Jr. just for depth purposes? Now, I have not seen him as someone that had signed with a team yet. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. Could be quality depth. Could be on the cheap. Lance, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it just depends on the price tag. I mean, depth. They need depth at the outside linebacker position. If either one of the outside linebackers were hurt, their defense would be severely impacted. It just depends on the price. I'm not sure what he played for last year. Who did he play for last year?
The Rams, I believe.
For the Rams. It just depends on the price tag. I mean, if you look at the Steelers cap situation, and I'm going to bring it up here, I don't think they have a ton left. They have about $7 million left.
They could restructure. Stephon Tuitt's deal could get restructured, so they could create space if they wanted.
If they restructure any contracts to create space, you guys know where I'm leaning. Backup quarterback position. So
yeah,
it just depends on the price tag. I think the idea is solid. I'm not sure about the player, but I know they are in a very vulnerable position in terms of depth at both linebacker spots, inside and outside. So bringing in a veteran edge rusher would not be a bad thing.
It's all about the money. That's what it's always about. Now, this is a more of a comment than a question, but Jordan on Twitter said, why do Steeler fans continue to do and post mock drafts when the Steelers don't pick till 49? Sure, there has to be something for them better to do. Look, Jordan, let me say as a website editor and as a podcast producer that when you don't have a first-round draft pick, it sucks. It really does, because once the calendar turns from free agency and you start really focusing on the draft, all these mock drafts, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, you name it, very rarely do they go into the second round. So we have to create content. Okay. That's what we are. We are content creators. Lance sends me a few text messages. Boom. The Curious Case of Terrell Edmonds. Here's your podcast. You're watching it and listen to it right now. It's content creation. Don't hate the people for trying to create content for you, the fan. That's all I'm going to say. Lance, you can say whatever you want about that. That's just my little spiel.
Yeah, I mean, and for us, it's especially challenging. Yes. I'm not a draft guy at all.
No, me neither.
And we're not draft guys, so we talk about the draft merely because we have to talk about the draft. I mean, I don't,
Yes.
and my dad laughs at me because he's like, look, here's some stuff for you to read. So here's a couple of guys. So when you're doing the pod, you just don't go, I don't know anything about this guy. But see, I embrace the fact that I don't know anything about these guys, because guess what? None of you guys know anything about these guys either, because guess what? Nothing that they've done in college matters. And like Terrell Edmonds, like we talked about, maybe to circle it back to that just a bit, it's how they're going to be utilized. You could get a stud guy in college, does everything well, does everything specifically well, whatever. They go to another team and they make them play corner when they're safeties, and they're getting killed as a corner or a slot corner, and you're like, this guy is terrible. No, the guy's not terrible. It's because he wasn't utilized well. So it's just a wait and see. With the draft, let me just wait a year or two, or let me just evaluate the player game by game like the coaches do. I don't have to guess. They're going to play, and we'll see how they play. So, to Jeff's point, we're trying to create content, and the draft is just one of those elements.
Absolutely. And I love what Reed Overand says, because we're all stuck in our houses with nothing better to do. There you go. That's why fans continue to do mock drafts.
Yes.
Hey,
And
I mean, seriously, at this juncture of our world, this is where we are.
I mean, I was so bored the other day. I actually watched one of the most painful Steeler games I've ever had to watch. And you can guess what game that was, Jeff.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Was it, give me the year.
2001.
Yeah, the AFC Championship game against the Patriots.
Absolutely. That's probably my worst Steeler memory, because it started their dynasty and it was just a terrible loss. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it, because they only scored one offensive touchdown and still won the game.
Can we not do this right now? Let's just not do this. Okay.
Terrible.
All right.
It gave me a migraine, and that's real talk. I got a migraine and I had to sleep for like 7 or 8 hours after the game. I was just literally sick. It made me sick. I woke up the next day on Monday.
All right. Next question came from Lang Pierce, who says, who will have a bigger year next year, James Washington or Deontay Johnson? This is interesting because I believe it was on our show a couple weeks ago, this one or the Standard. I get them confused. And we were talking about Deontay Johnson's numbers, and we all made the assumption that he led the team in receiving yards last year, and he didn't. It was James Washington. So, Lance, who do you think has the bigger year? And let's go with two categories: receiving touchdowns and receiving yards. Who has the bigger year?
Well, Deontay Johnson. He's going to have a better year, catches, touchdowns, and receiving yards. And the one reason I think that to be the case is when you watch both players on film, he gets off of press coverage much better than James Washington. I mean, if you want to take a look at it, if you guys have some access to NFL Game Pass, look at his game against the outstanding corner from Buffalo. I just had the guy's name in my head, but I just forgot his name. The outstanding first rounder, or I think the all-pro corner from Buffalo, and Deontay Johnson matched up against him one-on-one, and he was getting off of press coverage pretty easily, repeatedly against him.
It's White.
Yeah,
Tre'Davious White.
Against Tre'Davious White. And so I give the advantage to Deontay Johnson. I think he's a better technician. I think he's more versatile in terms of route running. And I think he's more dynamic after the catch than James Washington. And that's not to say that I don't think James Washington is an emerging player, because I love what I saw out of James Washington last year, specifically to play against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, there are not a lot of guys that can make that play.
BW Webb.
Yeah, and with that stiff arm. I mean, that was a great play. That shows you, where his ceiling could be. But I think he's more of a home run hitter type, vertical guy, run vertical routes, 9 routes in the seam and on the outside. I think he's more of that outside receiver, where Deontay Johnson is more dynamic. So I think Deontay Johnson will have a better season in all of those categories.
Okay, I'm going to side with our buddy Kenneth McNair, who put it out. He said, Their stats will look different. Deontay with more catches, Washington more yards. I do think Washington has more yards. I think he becomes a legitimate deep threat for the Steelers this year. But I think that Deontay Johnson will overall have the better quote-unquote season. I think he'll have more touchdowns.
To that point, to that comment, I think Washington's yards per catch will be greater.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
His yards, I think it'll be probably 14 and above for James Washington.
Okay, continuing in our Q&A mailbag here, Mason says, what are the expectations or what are your expectations of Benny Snell? Thought he played well as the season went on last year and proved he was more explosive than advertised, and it's hard to bring him down as well. Lance, Benny no Jets, what are your expectations in year 2?
Can I answer this by just saying J.K. Dobbins?
Oh, okay. All right. That's a college guy that Lance knows his name. So that means he's paying. Did your dad just slide you a piece of paper?
Yeah, if you're looking on the live chat,
you're getting all these pieces of paper.
J.K. Dobbins.
If he's there, it would be really tough to pass up. I'll put it that way. If he's there. So I think that Benny Snell could be a good complementary back. I'll put it that way. I don't think he is the guy. I think he is a change of pace type of player that could be good, but at the same time, I don't think he is the guy, as we put it in the show before.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. Now,
sure.
Now, let's say, Jeff, you're having, like steak and potatoes, right? Like potatoes are complementary to the steak, right? The steak is the star. The potatoes are complementary. Now, is Beanie No Jets? Is he a complimentary or is he just a condiment? So you know how salt and pepper you put in the potatoes, and they're the condiment that you put in the potatoes to enrich the complimentary dish. Is he condiments?
No, I think he's the potatoes. I think he's the potatoes. I really do, because I think that when I watched him run, he had a little, and I say this hesitantly because he's a Hall of Famer, but he had a little bussy to him. If he had a seam, he runs hard. He's not the type of guy that's going to go down easily. I would love to see him fill and I'm not sure if he is versatile enough to do this, but to be like that Meweldy Moore type. If you think back to how they utilized him, he was a change of pace back. Now, remember, change of pace can look like anything that's different than what you're used to. So let's say they do get J.K. Dobbins. Let's say they don't and they stick with James Conner. James Conner is a one-cut downhill, I'm going to wreck my body type runner. That's exactly what he does. And it seems like Benny Snell is different than that. He has a different style. I like him as the potatoes, not the steak. There you go. There's your answer.
Yeah, Benny Snell is SD, and they don't have an HD back. They have no high def back. Benny Snell is SD. He's standard def, where your computer looks fuzzy in the background.
All right, let's go to the next question in the mailbag. This is from Steelers Nation 920. What has Mason shown, Mason Rudolph, he's referring to prove that he's a solid NFL quarterback? And do you think he could be the future? It currently scares me to think he may be Ben's predecessor. Any reassurance would be great. I'll go ahead and start here and say that I don't think anyone in their right mind that watched 2019 would say that he is Ben Roethlisberger's predecessor or who's next in line, the heir to the throne, however you want to put it. For me, I look at Mason Rudolph as an unfinished product that still has to prove himself. And people in the live chat were saying, what about Paxton Lynch? Hey, for me, in my opinion, if I'm the coaching staff, I'm going into 2020, it's an open job. And that might be even a veteran that comes in. You've talked about this a lot. We know Ben's the guy. They've put all their eggs in Ben Roethlisberger's basket. And I don't even think they're thinking too much beyond his contract right now. But at the same time, I look at it and say, Mason is just another guy that's going to be competing for a job. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree that Mason will not sit upon the Iron Throne. He will never rule Westeros. He will never be that guy. He will never sit upon the Iron Throne. He's like 7th in succession. I would like him to be 7th in succession, but unfortunately, he's number 2 in succession. I don't want to beat a dead horse because I've beaten this dead horse over and over again.
Seriously.
I have. And look, he's not the guy. I mean, the one thing he does well is take a punch. He rolled with that shot pretty well. When he was fighting in the Cleveland game, he looked like he had some boxing skills. Unfortunately, rolling punches from helmets don't make you a really quality quarterback. And, he's an attractive lad, according to the Hartman house. And, his hair looks nice and he says the right things. But you notice I've not said anything about his ability to play the quarterback position. And I'm just concerned about it. Big Ben, Bionic Big Ben, only has 2 seasons left. I mean, this is it. And I just want to maximize the most out of those seasons. So if Ben goes down for, a 6-game stretch, I want to go 5-1 in those games. And I just don't think, unless the defense plays at a Madden all pro, whatever, the settings are on Madden, it just makes it very difficult. Get a quality backup quarterback so your season isn't lost if Ben is out for a quarter to a third of the season.
I agree. Okay, let's move on. Lori Steelers gal says, will Juju stay after next season? Will he get a juicy contract instead? And everyone's pointing to the Amari Cooper deal. It's $100 million total, maybe a little bit north of that, $60 million guaranteed, I believe. If you actually look at the last 3 seasons, their statistical production, Juju's is better, just so you know. I don't know what his agent, this is why, Lance, I told you months ago that if I were the Steelers, I'm trying to get an extension for Juju right now. His price tag is low because he's coming off an injury-plagued season. If you feel like he's going to bounce back, try to get him locked up, try to get that done because you don't want to have to deal with all of that stuff. But what do you think? How's that going to play out?
I'm looking at Amari Cooper's deal, and his cap hit for this year is $12 million, but then that jumps to $22 million over the next 4 years. They're not going to give a wide receiver that much money. He will not play at that number where his cap number is $22 million, especially not in 2021, where Ben Roethlisberger's cap number jumps to $41 million. It's going to be interesting with Juju. I think if Juju has a big year, he will definitely be offered a contract. I think he may be anyway. I could see Juju playing somewhere else. The wide receiver contract numbers are pretty high. And with Ben Roethlisberger only probably being the quarterback for one more season, I could see Juju playing somewhere else with a younger quarterback and for more money. Because you look at some of these wide receiver contracts, I mean, the average per year for Julio Jones is $22 million. Amari Cooper is number 2 in the National Football League at $20 million. Michael Thomas, 19.2. Tyreek Hill, $18 million. Odell Beckham, $18 million. AJ Green, 18 million. Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks. You look at the top wide receivers. I mean, even an Adam Thielen is 16.2, and Jarvis Landry is 15.1. So Juju's going to want average per year at least 15 to 16 million. And I don't know if they're going to do that for him and for a wide receiver. So I could see Juju, because of the money and because Ben won't be there another 5 years, playing for somebody else.
I think he stays. I think they get him a deal. I think that it's going to be just a typical Steeler deal that's light on the front end, backloaded. But when you were naming off all those receivers, it wasn't until you got to Brandon Cooks and Adam Thielen and those guys that I was like, yeah, that's where Juju belongs. Like, no one is saying that he's Michael Thomas. No one is saying that he is, all the elite guys in the NFL right now. But I think he's that upper second tier. And so the Steelers will have to be creative. I don't think they let him go, though. Unless he has another bad season, I think they bring him back, because if he has another bad season and he thinks he's getting $15 million a year, you're nuts. He's nuts, because he's not going to get it. He's not going to get it.
Let me throw you a name out here. Do you think he's better than Keenan Allen?
That's a tough one. No.
Because Keenan Allen's average per year is at 11.2. If they could get Juju at around 11.2, Juju will be back. Because these wide receiver contracts are pretty big. I mean, they got T.Y. Hilton at $13 million. You think he's better than T.Y. Hilton?
Yeah, I think he is.
Okay, so maybe that's the number right there, because Allen Robinson is at $14 million on average. I think the deal is $15 million or lower. I don't think he warrants $16 million, although, because when you're talking about $16 million, you're talking about DeAndre Hopkins and up. So it goes Hopkins, Cook, Evans, Green, Beckham, Hill, Thomas, Cooper, and Julio Jones. And I don't think and Michael Thomas. I don't think he's better than any of those guys. It'll be interesting. I think Juju plays somewhere else.
Okay, we differ. I think he stays. Lance says he's gone. All right, so here we go. Next question from Austin. We'll try to get all these done before the end of the show. Where do you see James Conner 1 year from now? Do you think this is the year he turns it around, or will someone take his place, possibly a draft pick? Personally, I've grown tired of the disappointment, injuries, and on-field play as much as I like him as a person. Where do you see James Conner in 1 year?
In the National Football League, but not playing for the Steelers.
I tend to agree, and he would have to have another Pro Bowl year to make me think otherwise. And so I think we agree on that one. It's just not in the cards right now for James Conner to remain with the Steelers. And, a lot of people will be disappointed, but, it's the nature of the beast, pretty much. Which Steeler, this is from Thomas Cole, which Steeler free agent will perform the best / have the biggest impact? He is comparing Steven Nelson to James Ferrier. That's a tough one because they were both free agent acquisitions. Obviously, Ferrier came from the Jets, Nelson from the Chiefs in his first free agent stint in the NFL. James Ferrier was really good.
Very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, Nelson had a good first. Nelson had a start. Would you say his ceiling is to be that type of player, that impact player?
I do. I mean, I do, because of the importance of the cornerback position. I mean, you have, and I'll say right now, I think he's better than Hayden. I think he had a better year than Hayden. And with Hayden getting older, at least you have that one side of the field pretty much locked up. I think the Nelson free agent signing is going to be one of those signings we look back on and say, that was a nugget that Colbert pulled out of his hat.
Yeah.
And for a pretty good price too.
Absolutely. And Nelson was the highest paid free agent in Steelers history. Day one transact. They knew what they wanted. They went and got him. And I'm going to be honest. They were like, who? Steven who? What? And shockingly, that when the Chiefs got rid of him and let him walk, I reached out to the Chiefs website and they were kind of like, this guy's no good. And so I had really low expectations. And so he played really well, above the expectations I had for him. And so that's awesome to see. Okay. Next was from Persian and Bubby's dad. It's his Twitter handle, not mine. If Tuitt has another injury-plagued season, is it time to move on?
No. I don't think it's time to move on. I think you got to give
They just
Tuitt.
paid him so much money.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, some of these answers, it's always the 3 Ps: performance, pay, and pedigree, right? And sometimes with players, it's just pay. I mean, it's you look at the dead cap charge. I mean, but I'll say this with Mr. Third and Fifth, they absorbed an absorbent amount of dead money. So it's not to say that they won't do it, but typically when the dead money and the cap savings are distorted. So in 2021, so if they were to cut him, let's say this year, their dead money charge would be $17.8 million, and they would have a negative cap savings. So what that does is that protects the player. That's his insurance that unless he injures himself to the point where he can't play, he will be playing for the Steelers. That ratio doesn't turn around until his last season, whereas if he were cut, the dead money would be $6 million and the cap savings would be $9 million. So if you're looking for him to get waived, it would be in 2022, not in 2020 or 2021, because he's pretty much protected by the amount of dead money charge.
Yeah, you said it well. There you go. And I think Rod Young says, Lance sounds smart today. You got this. That's what he said.
I have my day.
Okay, so even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Now, with that said, I have a question. This is not from Twitter. This is from me. Simple. You kind of wanted to touch on this. We have about 6 minutes left in the show. Will Antonio Brown play in the National Football League again?
Hell no.
Really?
Hell
yeah,
no.
I believe I asked you this like a month ago, and you said yes.
Hell no. I mean, the guy just got charged with 3 more charges today? I think it came
Something
out
like that.
A felony and a couple. Hell no. No, 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 no. He is not playing. He's at a position where great players play his position every single season. Like, you get great receivers that come into the league all the time. And he's getting older. He's getting crazier. And the longer it takes for him to get on the field, the harder it's going to be. He is never going to play. He needs a year of no noise. And another year of no noise puts him, at 32, 33? I mean, who needs a 33-year-old small receiver when I could get a dumb guy that's going to run through a barn, run through a wall, do everything I say, that's 21, that I can coach and mold. I don't have to bring in some old guy with baggage that thinks he's a prima donna superstar whose name is Gummy Richards. No way. Gummy Richards, Mr. 3rd and 5th, will never play again.
Well, let's remember this, though, too. While all this stuff's going on with him off the field, the reason why no one is signing him is because even if they do sign him, he will go on the commissioner's exempt list.
Yes.
And he will await punishment whenever his court proceedings are concluded. That's why no one's picking him up. And like you said, let's say it takes a year for all this stuff to sort itself out from the judicial system and all that. If that's the case, not only is he a year older, but then if a team signs him, the team can still say you're suspended for X amount of games for conduct detrimental to the league. And so I just think that, every single second is another missed opportunity for him. But Steeler fans feel like they got the short end of the stick here. No. Raider fans should be really upset.
Oh, yeah. He maneuvered his butt out of there, boy. That was all. He played that really well and then screwed it up when he got to New England. He played that like a master chess player, like Bobby Fischer. And then, he forgot how to play chess as soon as he got to New England.
Steeler fans said, oh my gosh, all we got was a 3rd and a 5th round pick. The Raiders got absolutely nothing.
Zero.
Nothing.
And he's probably going to win. And the other reason why I think he's probably going to win that arbitration case with the Patriots and probably get his money. I mean, that's what everybody.
That makes me sick. That makes me sick to my stomach.
And he's probably going to get his money. But it couldn't happen to a better team than that team up north that they have to pay AB. But kudos to Robert Kraft for what he did earlier in the week. I think sending the plane to China and bringing back supplies for hospitals to fight COVID-19. Absolutely. So big up to Robert Kraft and the Patriots for doing that.
The old rub and tug. All right, now.
I love that, Jeff. Thank you for always digging the Patriots. I mean, yes.
I can't do it. Just can't.
I joke with my brothers that they searched the plane for 5'2" Chinese women in the back of the plane.
Went there. Oh my gosh.
I can't help. See, you brought out that side of me, Jeff. I was trying to keep my horns tough, but you brought that side. Wet wipes.
So, hey, like I said, when we started the show, we might be switching hats today. I might be more of a hater. You may be more of a homer. You just never know what you're going to get. So, Lance, anything to add before we call it a show? It's been a good show so far.
Well, any show that I could say wet wipes and you could dig Robert Kraft has been a great show. I mean, wet wipes, Robert Kraft.
There you go.
Small Asian women in the back of the plane. It's been an excellent show. Excellent show. Oh, we have to talk about this Dallas. We were going to talk about this Dallas. He asked the question, is Hayden and
Let's
Nelson
do
the best
that on
CB
Wednesday.
duo? We'll talk about that on Wednesday because we did
check
talk
us
about
out.
that. But with that, listeners, hey, let's make sure the nation is taken care of. The nation, Steeler Nation, is taking care of Steeler Nation, keeping everybody safe. Doing your shelter in place, washing your hands, maybe putting your mask on. Let's make sure we keep everybody safe, take care of everybody you love, and make sure we keep everyone safe. But with that, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better. Everyone, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Homer and the Hater Show. Stay blessed. We'll talk to you.